through this experience, I've learned that we need more Latino executives. Not only Latino executives, but executives that like know and appreciate Latino culture. That maybe just don't see us as, you know, invisible people. And they need to see the contributions that we make to this country and that we're important. And sometimes it just feels like they're running out of excuses not to include us. And I don't understand why.
Kristen Maldonado here, and welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Planet, where we cover the world of entertainment while shining a light on inclusion and representation. Happy Latinx Heritage Month! This week we are joined by the writer and creator of Gordita Chronicles, Claudia Forestieri, and Cuckoo Castelli herself, Olivia Goncalves. I want to thank you both so much for joining me today to talk about you guys' careers, about Gordita Chronicles. But I want to start off first, kind of backtracking a little bit, and just hear about your relationship with your Latino heritage. Maybe Claudia, if you want to start.
No, I come from a Dominican family. I was born in Puerto Rico and I came to the United States when I was 7 years old. And it was very traumatizing because it was like I had to learn English, leave, the Caribbean behind, and start in a new place. But I didn't realize how good I had it in Miami until I got to college. And I left Miami for the University of Florida, go Gators in Gainesville. And that's actually when I really started to connect with my Latino heritage. Because growing up in Miami, even though I was surrounded by Latin people, I considered myself an American girl. But when I went to a place where I was suddenly the minority and, there weren't that many Latin people around, that's when I really started to appreciate my heritage. I started to gravitate to like other Latinos from like different countries and different places. I started getting into like Latin music. And ever since then, I've just been like head over heels in love with Latin culture. My first career was working for Telemundo, doing journalism in Spanish, covering the Latino community, which has so many amazing, interesting stories. I lived in Chicago. I lived in the Bay Area, lastly, Los Angeles. And now, all the time that I've been in Hollywood, it's always been my goal to, portray well-rounded, three-dimensional Latino characters. So I'm all about it.
Oh, I love that. And what about you, Olivia?
My mom was actually born in DR, so I take my Dominican part of myself from my mother. When I first started liking bachata, I was around I'm going to say 2 because I was already dancing by 2. And I take a lot of my Dominican part by dancing. I like to dance a lot of bachata, salsa. I'm learning merengue, and all that other stuff I'm still practicing because I'm not the best dancer, but I can dance you some bachata.
And now I'd love to hear how you both found your love for entertainment. Like, did you always want to, for you, Olivia, act and perform, and Claudia, write and kind of create a project like Gordita Chronicles?
I don't think I ever wanted to act until the opportunity came to me. But when I was younger, I'm pretty sure every child has had this image in their head of what it's like to be famous, or at least to be known or seen on TV. And that was me when I was younger. So I'm still in shock that I was able to complete one of my childhood fantasies.
Well, I grew up watching Oprah Winfrey, and I thought she was amazing. And I always wanted to somehow be involved in TV and entertainment. And I had no idea how to do it because, back then when I went to college, it was the 90s. And, the internet was just, taking little baby steps. So I went into news because I figured Oprah Winfrey started off in news and then she ended up queen of the world. So maybe, I could take that path. And then it wasn't until years later that I finally saw a path to doing what I really wanted to do, which was become a TV writer. And then, I moved to LA and it was very difficult, but it's been, worth all the sacrifice because I love it. It's a huge privilege, especially getting to tell stories about the Latino community. It's a lot of work. My family thought I was crazy when I moved out here to LA to pursue this, but they don't think I'm crazy anymore.
Absolutely.
I think I would have saw you as a hard working woman who's going after their dream.
Aw, thank you,
Because
Olivia.
that is what you are.
Aw.
And also a very beautiful woman. Everybody
I mean,
here today is beautiful, very beautiful.
I'm gonna send you a check later, Olivia.
Well, first of all, I love the positive energy, and Claudia, I love what you were saying about telling these stories of Latinos that we haven't gotten to see before. And I try to think back, and I'm like, I can't really think of like what's like a Dominican story that I've seen on screen that like really resonated with me until Gordita Chronicles. And so, like, is that something that is like really important to you in all the projects that you're working towards, to kind of show that representation?
Yes, I mean, growing up, what I was surrounded by was Caribbean culture. And, I was born in Puerto Rico to Dominican parents, raised in Miami, which there's, so many Cubans in Miami. So I was so inundated by Caribbean culture, yet I never saw Caribbean characters on TV and film. And I really, really like wanted to show that, like not only my own family, but also the place where I had the privilege of growing up, where I, was not ashamed to speak Spanish. I was actually encouraged to speak Spanish, and it's a bilingual city. And I was always, raised to be proud of my culture and my heritage. And I was surrounded by people who were also proud of their Latino heritage. So I really wanted to reflect that in the scripts that I wrote. And I think it's very important too. Like when I worked in news, we would always analyze the demographics of a city just to, figure out like who our audience was. And I think that, for example, so many shows set here in Los Angeles. Like when I moved to Los Angeles, I was like, wait a second. Nobody told me that LA was half Mexican and, Mexican American. Like this is like the most Mexican American city, like, in this part of the country. Yet you see shows set in LA and you don't see those characters. So that's part of my mission, is to reflect the Latino community and also the populations of all these cities. Because I feel like right now we're like invisible. Like New York, there's like 2 million Dominicans in New York. And most of the shows that you see that are set in New York, you'd be hard pressed to find a Dominican character. So that's part of my mission, and that's what I try to incorporate into all the scripts that I write.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about how difficult was it to get a show like this made, and how you found Olivia, and kind of how, Olivia, you got involved in Gordita Chronicles.
I first wrote Gordita, believe it or not, it used to be a 1-hour script. It was like a light drama, kind of like Selena, the series, which I also wrote on. And I wrote it not thinking that anybody would ever be interested in making a show. I wrote it as a script sample to get me jobs. And then Frank Ochoa at Sony, who's a Mexican American, who understands how underserved Latinos are, saw potential in the script. And he's like, hey, would you change it into a half-hour comedy? And I wrote comedies too. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'll change this into a musical. Like, you think we could like get this show on a network? Let's do it. So Sony was always extremely supportive. They saw the potential of the story even before I did. And then we found wonderful partners at HBO Max. And we had a Black female executive and our other executive who is white but came from Australia. So she actually also had the immigrant experience. And they also saw the value in this story. Jennifer O'Connell did as well, and Sarah Aubrey. Unfortunately, as you know, HBO Max decided that they no longer wanted to do kids and family shows, which is extremely upsetting. I'm still trying to make sense of it, because I don't see why a network would want to cancel a show that's a hit and that's exceeded viewership levels, etc., and been like reviewed as well as it's been. But that's what's happening, and I have to live with it. And it's also I'm so happy that Gordita got received the way it did, but it's very heartbreaking because a lot of the people involved in Gordita Chronicles at HBO Max were let go, and they were like people of color. So that's also I'm just scratching my head over why it seems that the new leadership is taking this different route, which seems, from my perspective, not to reflect the makeup of this country. But anyway, going back to how we found Olivia, we were looking for a young actress that was, had a Dominican background and had sass, but could also play like these heartfelt moments. and just bring that energy and that chispa. And we were having trouble because there's not that many Latino child actors out there. And I reached out to one of my friends, and I put a post on social media. One of my writer friends got back to me, Jorge Reyes, and he's like, "Oh, I know this guy that can help you. You're gonna have to give him a call because he wants to talk to you." And I'm like, "Okay." So this was Ulises Terrero, who's, some people might know. He's amazing, and he's been in the industry a long time. And he spoke to me very plainly, and he's like, "Listen, I can send you some girls, but are you really gonna give them a chance? Like, I don't want you just to play with their emotions. You gotta give them a real chance. You gotta really consider them. You gotta get them in front of producers." And I was like, "Yes, please." And he sent me a wonderful video of Olivia, and the rest is history. Like, she just, we kept calling her back, and then when she had a call back with Eva Longoria, I'll let her tell you about that.
So I was at my aunt's house, and her boyfriend's cousin, who is my manager, Ulysses Terrero, was staying there, and I was helping around because she had just had a baby and it was during quarantine. So I was helping her out a little. And my attitude throughout the day is usually sassy. I'm not going to really say classy, but I try and be classy. So I'm just going around the house acting like myself, and he loves my attitude. And then my aunt's boyfriend calls my mom and was like, "My cousin just called me and said he was looking for this, and this for a role." And I told him, "I think I have the perfect person." And I told him it was your daughter. So I gave him your number. He's going to call you any minute. He calls my mom. He's like, "What's up? I'm Ulysses Terrero, and let's get this thing going." We practice for like a week, and we do all the callbacks. Obviously, since it's my first time, I'm very nervous for each one, but also excited. So I'm nersited.
Nersited. I love it.
And it was the same for the first two callbacks. The audition tape, it went by pretty quickly because I knew my lines. And when we were sending in the video, I had to do a little piece of me speaking Spanish. That was very hard because even though I am Dominican, I don't speak much Spanish because in my house, we mostly speak English because my grandmother, who is fluent in Spanish, she understands it. So I kind of have a free pass to not speak Spanish, which I think was a terrible idea because now I'm like out in Dominican Republic. They're all like, que lo que, and I'm like, when we were on the callback with Eva, I was a little nervous because, I mean, it's Eva Longoria. So I'm there. I think I stuttered once or twice. I don't really remember, but all I know is that the entire time I was nervous. And a couple of days later, we got a phone call and they were like, "I got the part." And it was just such a joyful moment. I actually couldn't even believe it. I was like, "No, they're messing with me. Are you serious?" Claudia called you and said I got the part, or whoever called her told you. Let me hear it. And she's like, "I can't let you hear it." It was a phone call. So it was just a really awesome moment. It was a once in a lifetime thing.
Oh, I love that. And so now working on the show, Olivia, this was your debut, first big project. What was it like? What did you learn?
It was awesome, and I learned a lot because I've never acted in my life before. So I got awesome tips. I got told what's good to do and what's not good to do, how to do certain things, and obviously the tips worked because look at how awesome the show did. It got 100 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is very, very hard for plenty of shows to get, which is also why I'm a little confused on how come the show didn't proceed to a season 2, because when you get 100 on Rotten Tomatoes, that usually means like a lot of people love it and they're wanting something more from that show or movie or whatever is getting 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. But I mean, all you can do is be happy and move forward.
I also wanted to ask you, because during the red carpet premiere for Gordita Chronicles, I know, Olivia, you had a great conversation with Jessica Marie Garcia. She was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and she was just going on about how amazing you were. And
Me?
just, yeah.
Amazing.
But I wanted to hear from your perspective what it was like talking with her.
I like, if I was her daughter, I would be like, Mommy, can I get your autograph? I don't know why. Like, I feel like her character portrays me so much, because in the show she's just like that one friend who's like, oh, you're in our friend group, but like we don't really want to talk with you right now because you're loud and annoying. And that's me. I mean,
On my block, she was great in that show.
Like, I love her character. It's just, it is me, because in my friend group, when we laugh, I'm the loudest one. When we talk, I'm the loudest one. When we whisper, I'm still talking. It's not that she gets left out. I don't get left out. If I'm getting left out, I'd be walking myself back in. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what she did. I remember there was a scene where they were running away from her, and she's like, with her asthma. That's me, just without the asthma. We basically talked about how much we loved each other in both of our shows, and she also gave me the chance to speak with the one and only Spooky. Like, that just made me love her even more. That was a dream come true, meeting both of them, because they're one of my biggest and favoritist. I don't think that's a word. Is that a word?
Yeah. Why not?
I just made a new word, y'all. Favoritist. They're my favoritist people from that show.
Claudia, I want to go back to kind of what you were talking about. It is crazy to me that Latino shows that can be critically acclaimed, that can have, incredible Rotten Tomatoes scores, that can have like all of these fans, like, continue to be canceled. Like, Gordita Chronicles, I feel like, is one of like many shows in the last few months that are Latino-led. And I'm just curious, like, do you guys have any thoughts of like why? I know you mentioned they let go of a lot of people at HBO Max that were, very diverse and maybe part of bringing shows like Gordita Chronicles to life. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, having been through this experience, I've realized that as hard as we might work, behind the scenes, like writing the show, and the actors might work, and all these beautiful things can come together to create a great project. But if we don't have executives at the network that know our culture and appreciate our culture and see us as equals, that it's going to be very hard to get more representation on screen. So I used to think, well, executives, people who run these networks are, about the bottom line, and they're logical people, they're business oriented, like, they don't see color, they just see green. So if you can deliver and perform well, you can succeed. But now, through this very painful experience, I realized, there is a lot of subjectivity in these decisions that are made. And it's, the irony is, one of the reasons I wanted to write about this experience was because I felt that immigrants needed to be humanized. Because many times when, especially during the last administration, we would see immigrants, it was in a very negative light. The few Latino characters on certain shows, some of them were immigrants that, were doing, not so wonderful things, which I felt didn't really represent, our population. So I thought, well, if we write shows to kind of like let them know who we are and humanize us, then like maybe that will help. Like I know growing up, I learned so much about the African American community watching all these shows. And I felt so close to like Black culture and Black people, just learning about all the things that they had been through. So I was thinking, well, but now through this experience, I've learned that we need more Latino executives, not only Latino executives, but executives that like know and appreciate Latino culture, that maybe just don't see us as, invisible people. I guess if they see us as invisible people, they don't see us. But they need to see us, and they need to see the contributions that we make to this country and that we're important. And sometimes it just feels like they're running out of excuses not to include us, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And it's like when you continually see these like critically acclaimed shows led by Latinos being canceled, it's like I don't know anymore what the disconnect is. Because you would think, yeah, it's like, oh, it does well, makes us money, let's keep going. But there's something, there's something, I don't know what it is. It's very frustrating.
I feel like there always will be something, like they're gonna make something up every single time, because I feel like they feel like we don't deserve to have our story to be told. That's how I feel, because there's so many amazing TV shows. Have you guys ever seen that show One Day at a Time?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They continued it. The show was so good. That was one Hispanic TV show that I saw that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
And when they discontinued it, I felt the same way as I feel with this one. I feel a little bit more heartbroken because I was in it, but still, it was an awesome show.
I mean, at least we can look back and be like, you can see how it like influenced people. And like I said, this is, I feel like one of the first times I've ever seen a Dominican family that was like mine, you know, on TV ever. But, you know, so at least there's that. But, it does, I feel like it hurts the whole community. But I also wanted to follow up with that because I know, Claudia, before creating Gordita Chronicles, you mentioned you wrote on Selena. I know you've written on Good Trouble. And I'm curious about your experiences writing on those shows, especially because it's been documented that, like, on Selena, they didn't really give as big of a budget to that show as they did to other, like, non-Latino shows and things like that. And so I'm curious if you feel like that show kind of had a similar experience in just not getting the recognition or getting the support from the higher-ups.
Writing on Good Trouble was a wonderful experience. And I was very fortunate to have that be my first writing staff because the room was really diverse. There was another writer that was also Latino. We had, a Black writer. We had writers that identified as LGBTQ, and the actors as well, Sierra Ramirez and other wonderful Latino actors. So that was a really, really great introduction into what a writing staff could look like when, they want to represent different groups. With Selena, unfortunately, I don't have that much. They kept, the way we wrote the show, we wrote all of the episodes first, both seasons, and then everything was shot. So I was not, with Gordita Chronicles, I was informed of the budget and all that. With Selena, it was different. The writing was very separated from the actual production process. And even though I love and I'm very proud of what ended up on screen eventually, Christian Serratos and all those actors did an amazing job. And Moises is one of my mentors to this day, and I look up to him. It was heartbreaking just to, even though I never got to see the budgets and nobody sat me down and told me, Claudia, this is how it's going to happen, because I wasn't like a higher level writer on that show, it was a little heartbreaking just to see that it wasn't getting the same treatment as other Netflix shows. So, you see the budget of a show like The Crown and you see the budget of a show like Selena the series, you don't even have to see the numbers to see the disparity. And yet, Selena affected as many, I don't know if as many people as the Queen, right? But she had a huge impact. She was such a huge star. And I didn't think that show should have been in the international section, because I think because they labeled it international, they were able to get away with doing a lower budget show, which was unfortunate, especially because Selena was an American girl. Mm-hmm. So, that's something that's just part of the bigger issue about them not seeing the potential in Latino shows and not really investing in them. I mean, on one hand, we have to be grateful that at least we're getting these opportunities, but on the other hand, it's like, when is there going to be more equity?
I definitely agree. I feel like there's, I don't know, I feel like everyone's having their moment, and it's kind of like Latinos are not really getting that chance. I mean, I know there's a lot of stories to tell. There's a lot of different cultures within the bigger umbrella. But you guys are doing the work, which it's beautiful to see. I'm curious if you guys have any upcoming projects or upcoming things you're working on, or just any kind of like Latinx heritage, messages or words of wisdom that you want to share.
I have a word of wisdom. Never give up and continue trying, even when you think you can't do it.
Yeah, no, I think never give up is great. One message that I have for anybody who wants to be in the entertainment industry, to go for it. Sometimes rejection and getting no's and doors slammed in your face can be a gift, because it makes you realize how much you want it. And in this business, you have to really persevere. It took me 9 years to get my first TV writing job, and I thought it was never going to happen. But once it did, I was so prepared that, thank goodness, knock on wood, in the 4 years since I've been an official, WGA card-carrying TV writer, I've gotten wonderful opportunities. Not everything has gone the way I wanted, but at least I'm in the game. And right now I have an overall with Sony. And that means that I'm working on developing other TV show ideas with them. I don't have anything yet that I can talk about, but I do have a couple of ideas that are inspired by my own life. And there's one show that's a Sony property that we're talking about reviving. So hopefully in the next few months, I'll be able to talk more about that. But, I'm going to keep going. It's been difficult to think about other projects. I feel like I'm cheating on Gordita Chronicles, but I'm trying to keep going, because we need to keep telling our stories. And I'm still hopeful things will change. They're not changing fast enough, if you ask me, but we got to keep at it.
Absolutely.
And we'll always try our hardest, because I miss working.
Yeah.
I really do.
I know. I want to put you to work again, Olivia.
And Claudia, congratulations on that deal. I'm so excited to see what you have coming up next.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank both of you so much for your time.
Thank
I
you.
really feel like Gordita Chronicles changed the game, and you just did such a beautiful job with it. So I'm excited to see what you guys have coming up next.
Thank you. This was really fun.
You can catch up with the podcast pretty much everywhere on social media at Kaymaldo, Kaymaldo, or at Pop Cult Planet. Support the podcast with your very own Pop Culture Planet merch at teespring.com/stores/Kaymaldo. If you enjoyed these episodes, consider subscribing so you know when a new one is posted. Rate and review this podcast and share it with your fellow pop culture lovers. Thanks for listening. It's been a blast, and I'll catch you in the latest episode. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and if you want to talk more TV and movies with me outside of the comments section, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Kaymaldo. If you like this one, you can check out more of my videos right over here. See ya!